On today's wrestling news, Finn Balor returns on WWE SmackDown.
Another wrestler returns and works their first WWE match in a decade before SmackDown.
There was a bunch of NXT stars around backstage during SmackDown.
And Vinnie Mac opened the first SmackDown in front of live fans, and there was a huge attendance number as well. It was all good.
Are you ready? Are you ready for the news time? Yes, my name is Phil Chambers, and I'm joined by Gareth Morgan to talk all things wrestling on this fine day when fans are back. It makes all the bloody difference. But before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below what you think of all of today's stories, including fans being back, and yeah, do all that stuff. So the first up story on SmackDown last night, Finn Balor has returned. He came out during a segment with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was out there talking about how there's injustice everywhere, and he was trying to get the fans to chant for justice for Sami, and they were having none of it. And he was talking about how he should just be handed the Money in the Bank briefcase because of the amount of injustice everywhere. But obviously, before he could finish all of his big points, out comes Finn Balor to a huge pop. And he didn't really say anything. He just beat up Sami Zayn. He hit him with the coup de grace, and he did his big pose thing, and off he went for a mighty fine return back to SmackDown. We've not seen him since NXT on May the 25th. And it looks like we're going to be heading towards a Sami versus Finn match at some point. No word if they're going to kind of shoehorn that onto the pay-per-view on Sunday, or whether they're going to save it for next week, which I hope they do that one instead. But very much nice to see Finn Balor back on the main roster TV. It's been a long time. Back in 2019, he moved down to NXT. And what a pop he got.
Yeah, obviously this is great for the NXT lover here, because it was just fantastic seeing Finn back in front of a live crowd. He deserves it. He's put in a hell of a shift over the last couple of years on NXT. And I'm just curious now as to how he's going to be used, because the Balor that we saw back in NXT, he just had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He was nasty, he was gritty, a bit of an in-betweener, all that. And I think that it can still lend itself to the main roster. He could still do that and have that attitude, and thought it was very telling when he was doing his poses that he does. When he was last on the main roster, he really played up to the crowd. Now he kind of half does that and then does his little gun pose. So when he was doing that, I was like, oh, he's still in there. Bit of the gritty grey Balor. I just don't want him to, I don't want to see him smiling every second he's on screen, like it was last time when he was just being told to toothy grin all the time, and it was just an artificial Balor. I think if you let him just be him, he doesn't have to cut promos every 10 seconds. He could just do stuff like this. Just turn up, whoop ass, get out. Like that's all I need from my Balor. And this match, if we do get that match next week, it's going to be great, isn't it? Because they're both fantastic. So I'm happy. That was a good, one of the great moments on SmackDown. But another great moment that wasn't technically on SmackDown, but it was SmackDown adjacent. All right, it was there. It was in the same building, and we had the return of Davey Boy Smith Jr., Harry Smith. He was under the name of here, but it was massive because he's not been on WWE, well, he wasn't technically on WWE television here, but he's not been kind of wrestling matches for WWE in 10 years, so that's huge. So obviously he's been working in New Japan, MLW, All Japan, and he did say after this, he had like a YouTube backstage interview little thing where he cut a bit of a promo saying how much he'd grown, how much he'd improved in his years away in Japan and all the rest of it. And he pretty much referenced that it isn't a one-off thing, this. He's here, he's back, and he's going to show the world just how good he is. And if you don't know this, like obviously if you've had a look up on Davey Boy Smith's career where he's been away from WWE, he had 3 runs with the IWGP Tag Championships. He had those with AEW's Lance Archer. So he's got a bit of good pedigree. He's been doing pretty well in his time away. But Phil, I've got a question. Do you know what his last match within the WWE world and sphere was?
I have no idea. 10 years ago. I bet it was against Ziggler. It's always against Ziggler.
It wasn't against Ziggler. It was on WWE Superstars, remember that?
Of course.
And it was in April 2011, and he lost to Zack Ryder. Yeah,
of course.
We know it. So yeah, that was a thing, but it was lovely seeing him, and he seemed to be just over the moon that he was just back in front of a crowd, and I really hope he just gets the world, this guy, because he's brilliant, he's talented, he just deserves a good run.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see him back within the WWE fold, but there's more to this story as well, because he wrestled a dark match before SmackDown, and in that dark match were a whole bunch of whole bunch of NXT superstars getting their little tryout matches that they've been doing over the past sort of month-ish, a bit longer. But so yeah, Davey Boy Smith, he teamed with Austin Theory in a tag match to take on Odyssey Jones and Daniel Vidot. And also backstage there was Xia Li and Aaliyah. Now, obviously, Xia Li is scheduled to face Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship next Tuesday night. Aaliyah is kind of been rumored to be heading over to Raw in a strange switch with Mandy Rose. And she's like obviously turned on Robert Stone on NXT last week. Austin Theory is obviously a member of The Way with Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano, but he has also had his sort of a dabbles with the main roster in the past, back when he was kind of in Zelina Vega's stable for a short period of time that never really went anywhere. Odyssey Jones is in the NXT Breakout Tournament thing that they're doing on 205 Live and NXT, and Daniel Vidot, or also, I think they've changed his name to Zion Quinn, is an Australian former rugby player who signed with WWE Developmental back in April of 2020, but hasn't really done anything on NXT as of yet. So lots of people getting their little dark match tryouts over on WWE. Still some eyes into the future and what might be coming, whether it's in the draft or just random call-ups in the next sort of few months or so. But adding this to the list of other people that we've seen, they've got their eyes on quite a few down there.
Yeah, and this screams to me of just trying to get an influx of youth and just vibrancy on that main roster right now, because I think they need that. They need a bit of exciting talent just to take up the roster. Like you saw Shotzi and Knox when they showed up on the tank, firing missiles out to the audience. Everyone loved it, and it was just because it was something a bit different. And we've not seen them; they've not been overexposed yet on the main roster, but it'll come.
They did have a number one contenders match against the tag team champions on SmackDown last night. Don't know where that logic comes from, but whatever.
Roll-ups, man. Roll-ups mean everything.
Yeah.
And they earned it. But the only one I'd be a little bit concerned about is, for me, Austin Theory, because the other guys, like, if they've not necessarily had massive runs in NXT, and if WWE just want to hot shot them straight to the main roster and give them a go, great. And Xia Li, I think she's at a point where she could come straight up to the main roster. I think she's had a lot of development over the last year or so within NXT. With Austin Theory, I think he's had a lot of development, but he's still got so much more like room to grow on NXT. I think he could have a shot at a championship, and just I think he's still quite young and he's so talented. He's so good. Just what he can do within the borders of the ropes would just be brilliant. But then his character stuff as well is coming on beside Johnny, and I just wouldn't want to see him again hot-shotted onto the main roster like what happened last time, where he kind of got lost in the shuffle very quickly, and everyone could see how good he was. He just wasn't really given that space to breathe. So I'd be a bit concerned about that one personally. We don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to have to wait and see for it. But what we do know is that Vince McMahon opened up last night's SmackDown. Yep, he got the first pop. Yeah, he couldn't help himself, mate. Literally, you had Michael Cole saying, "Oh my God, we got all these fans back," and everyone was going crazy when the camera was on. And was like, "Yeah, we're here." And then out of nowhere, all you heard was the no chance, and everyone went mad. We couldn't help ourselves. You know what I mean? It was just everyone went crazy, going ballistic, and he's just drinking it all in. It was all great stuff. And I thought, here comes a heartwarming McMahon promo, like, "Oh, we've missed you." Didn't do that. No, he just went, "Where have you been?" That's literally what he said, "Where the hell have you guys been?" And then bowed and walked off.
That was it.
That was it. That was literally it. And I was like, oh, that's the most McMahon thing ever. Just drinking probably the loudest pop of the night, bow, and then bugger off. So it was great. Everyone loved it. Like that's all that matters in this kind of situation anyway. But on top of this, like I said, Michael Cole was talking about like when everything first came on. He was like, "Wow, we're in this sold out arena. 14,496 people were crammed inside of that arena." And for a change, WWE didn't just like round it up to 15,000 for the sake of it. They were just boasting about the fact that they managed to get 14,500 people inside that arena, and it was crazy. It was like, honestly, I never thought I'd be so happy just to see a random SmackDown. And I know it was a go-home show, but still, if you looked at this SmackDown on the calendar 2 years ago, you'd just be like, "Oh yeah, it's just a SmackDown in Texas. Yeah, great, cool." It was just great not seeing the LED screens and seeing people like reaching out and high-fiving people, and like, we're not going to talk about the big like pandemic elephant in the room right now, because let's just enjoy the moment.
Keep on the positivity train.
Stop it. Just enjoy the moment.
Good to see they are putting all of those Thunderdome screens to good use with the biggest bloody LED entrance screen I have ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, because I really like the rings. I like the rings.
They never really got their big like moment either. Like they kind of debuted a little bit before the pandemic, and they were never there for very long. But I always really liked that set.
Yeah, I think that deserves another chance, because all we've got now is literally the Mount Everest of LED screens.
Gigantic.
It's
ridiculous.
huge. Yeah, it's very big.
It is. But it's very good to have fans back, and it's very good to have Twitter questions. There's a link, I guess. But we do move on to your Twitter questions. And the first one comes from Ryan Ahad, who says, pick 3 superstars that you want swapped in this year's draft. Here's his picks. He wants to move Riddle to SmackDown, Big E to Raw, and Sami Zayn to NXT.
Ooh, good choices, I'd say, across the board there. Personally, I'd have Ricochet going to SmackDown. I just need to see that guy flipping all over the place. Going up against Finn Balor now would be ridiculous. That'd be great. Sami Zayn, I think, would just revel in being on Raw right now. I think he offers himself to the more promo-based work, and I think he'd have so much time to do that on the 3-hour Raw. That'd be good. And then, in terms of people going back to NXT, I was going to say Mandy Rose, but she's gone already, so that's a shame. Who could it be? I reckon, because you got to think of somebody who's perhaps maybe even been in NXT before, so they get a big pop. You can't just have somebody who's just never, they can't have Randy Orton just suddenly going to NXT. I just don't think it'd work the same way. So maybe Kevin Owens. I know. I feel like he's ran his race a little bit on SmackDown recently. He's had all those championship shots against Roman Reigns, and now it's a bit like, well, I don't know. I don't think he's going to win Money in the Bank. It'd be a nice. I think he'd love to be back in NXT. Remember when he came back at War Games, had that massive pop and had a great performance. So I'd love to see him maybe go back to NXT and give whoever's at the top of the mountain a run for the money. Why not?
Fair. I was also going to say Kevin Owens down to NXT. They need like someone else to fit that kind of Finn Balor little position. Kevin Owens would be very, very good down there. Give him a chance to reset a little bit maybe on the main roster, come back in a year, revitalized and ready to go. But I would also move, let's go with Asuka over to SmackDown, just to change up the women's scene a little bit and give her something to do that is outside of this Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley thing, and let her shine over on SmackDown. And I would 100% agree with you in moving Big E over to Raw, because put him back with the New Day, have him win the briefcase as well, move over there, challenge Bobby Lashley at some point, and win the WWE title. That's what I'd do with Big E right now, and they should do it right now. And let's move Johnny Gargano over to SmackDown as well. Just give him a chance. Why the hell not? Bloody love Johnny Gargano. He can do it. He's small. Ignore that, Vince. He's great.
Yeah, please, because he's one of the most captivating characters in NXT over the last year. He can do this stuff. He
can. Or just move every single tag team over to Raw and actually have a tag team division.
That's it. No, that's way too simple for a tag team division there, Phil. That's too easy a solution.
The next question comes from Jordan Best, who says, "Hi, legends. Who do you think will debut tonight in Impact?" Obviously, Slammiversary is tonight, and they have been hyping up some big debuts for ages now.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of, obviously, rumours down like the grapevine. Obviously, I bet you have as well. It's one of those things where I feel like Ruby Riot's been heavily linked, that Deonna Purrazzo mystery opponent spot. So I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to see Ruby Riot, I can't even say her name now, Ruby Riot, to get that spotlight and get that kind of position. I think she was so underutilized in WWE for so long. I just want to see her just hit the ground running, maybe even win the belt. That'd be amazing. So for me, I'd love to see Ruby Riot show up on Slammiversary.
Fair. And for me, it's Chelsea Green in the Matt Cardona match. It's a perfect fit, tagging with Matt Cardona, going up against Brian Myers and Matt Cardona's ex-girlfriend, Tennille Dashwood. It fits together, even though she did pop up in Ring of Honor, obviously. And I also kind of want Chelsea Green to pop up in AEW at some point, because I think she'd be really, really good over there. Just let her wrestle everywhere. The forbidden door is open now. Let her go absolutely everywhere. Big fan. And the final question comes from Patrick Salamu, who says, "What do you think of WWE bringing back Evolve as a developmental brand and using Main Event the same way AEW uses Dark and Dark Elevation for its younger talents?"
That's a really cool suggestion, thinking about it, because I remember when, I think Daniel Bryan said it a couple of months back, that NXT's not a developmental platform anymore. It's just not. Like, it's its own brand, it's got its own audience, and the people who are on that brand, it's really, I think it's more heavily towards people that are a bit more established than it is just people up and coming. Obviously, we've got a breakout tournament coming, but that's kind of a one-off thing. But yeah, I feel like if you had Evolve as a proper place just to develop talents again, like the old NXT was, that'll probably become as popular as what NXT once was, and then that'll become its own brand. But let's not go there. But I think that'd be a good suggestion. Then having, Main Event actually be something people want to go out of their way to watch would be good as well. And that's not just a knock on anybody performing on main event, because the people who are on main event are pretty damn good. It's just that we don't promote it and don't give it its stage. Like you got like Jeff Hardy versus, what was it, like Jeff Hardy against Ricochet or something the other week, and I was like, what? That's just happened. It's just
shove
madness.
People on there that they have no idea what else to do with. But if you actually turned it into a brand that has a gimmick built around it of like, see the stars of tomorrow today, etc., I think that would work really, really well. And I love the Evolve idea. NXT has definitely kind of become its own thing. It's not really developmental anymore. And they are missing that big gap of that sort of first step onto TV. And I mean, Evolve was always pretty much a developmental for WWE. Anyway, I was a massive fan of Evolve back when it was stocked full of guys like Johnny Gargano and Uhaa Nation and Ricochet, and look where they are all now. So I think that's an absolutely great idea. Have another little step in the rung of developmental and stop people either having to debut on national network television on NXT, which is never the best way to grow, let's face it, and B, actually offer a full developmental brand and a sort of stepping stone to get to the top. I really like it as an idea. Good stuff.
Yeah. So you know what? It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, 100%.
That's the way it works.
But that was today's news. Thank you very much for joining us. If you want, you can follow us all on Twitter. You can follow me at FillMyChambers, and you can follow Gareth
at GMorgan04.
And you can follow all of us at WhatCulture WWE. Like I say, make sure you subscribe to the channel, comment down below, like the video. It all really, really does help. But most importantly, have yourselves a bloody good day.
Bye-bye.